Welcome to this week's edition of New Money. I'm Michael Wong. Trademarking a voice or a sound, it's a completely new industry here in China. This week, we explore the aspirations of a man who wishes to be the pioneer of this nascent sector and check out what innovative methods he's employing to reach that goal.
What kind of business should someone really get involved in? You have to try different things to find out what's right for you. Around 20 million yuan. None.
Qinjie has done only two things for the past 30 years. One is, of course, spending money. He spends it on recording different sounds of the natural world. He also records Chinese dialects and the sounds of ancient musical instruments. That's the second thing he's done. But he's never been able to make a penny on all those investments. Surprisingly, he seems to be proud of that. He sees himself as a person who has never given up on his dream. That's not how things started out for the odd Mr. Qin. The last thing he ever got paid for was a job as vice director of a local bank in Hefei City. What changed his life? Like others of his age, China's reform and opening policy has given him his original inspiration and determination.
At the beginning stage of the reform and opening up, one thing that changed China was from the visual side, such as bell-bottoms and sunglasses, and the other was the beautiful voice of Teresa Teng.
Mr. Qin was not only affected emotionally, but also financially.
At that time, the national telecom sector imported a big batch of communication facilities, but there was still lack of content. So the government asked the public to submit sound-related material. I did several programs. One of them was recording dialects at colleges nationwide, over 60 dialects in total. Sounds alone contributed more than 1,000 yuan a month to the telecom sectors. I found that you could really make money on sounds. Given my experience in the financial sector, I began to think about whether I could manage sound the same way as I used to run the bank. I wanted to build a sound bank.
By now, he has collected over 40,000 sound recordings. His theory is that people will need them. It might not be now, but people will need them eventually. Why? Because people have ears.
We use our eyes as important tools to know the world. But ears are also very important. So there needs to be enough information for the ears. Have you ever heard of the sounds of our national treasure, the panda? 95 out of 100 people have not. So we are short of a tool to know the world. It's incomplete.
Good ideas and persuasive theories. But the problem is making money from them.
Many people have been offering downloadable sound material online, and a lot of websites are free, similar to those providing royalty-free pictures. If you record a bird tweet, there's no way you can claim your intellectual property and set the price for people to use it. And if you do so, I can always go to somewhere else which offers free sounds.
As a result, all the sounds are still free downloads on the internet. Qinjie himself didn't tell us how hard he has struggled to make money from his sound database. We learn in Hefei that Mr. Qin did once talk to a local audio company, but they turned him down. Nobody believed it would work. So who has been backing him up for the past 30 years? who is willing to support a business without any income? Well, Mr. Chin wouldn't tell us, but we learned that the mysterious investor is a very rich real estate developer in Anhui province. After making so much money from the land market, he decided to sponsor some charities to pay back society for his success. He chose Qinjie and his sound library.
在这个世界上不是讲了一句话吗？
There is a saying that whoever controls resources has power. You have to understand that controlling the resources requires huge amounts of investment. Every country is fighting for the resources of space, the South and North Poles. Have they made money yet? No. But once you have the resources that others don't, the profit will eventually come.
So we're familiar with trademarking products, but putting that unique personal stamp and branding on voices and sounds is big business in developed economies. Vocal trademarking is just getting started here in China. Professor Jia Ning, Deputy Director at Tsinghua University's China Business Case Center, joins us for today's discussion. Professor, thank you. So the founder of this business, Qinjie, says he who controls resources controls the power. So in his case, he's amassed a sound library of about 40,000 pieces of sound. And again, this is a very nascent industry here in China. Not a lot of businesses in this industry right now. Question is, can he actually monetize on this?
Well, I think the implicit assumption that Mr. Chin makes here is all the sound he's collecting are resources and can be potentially monetized. Now, I think we need to think actually a little bit harder about this claim. There are two attributes that defines resource. So one is utility. The other one is limited availability. Right? So you can potentially have something that has high value but is of very limited supply. For example, real estate properties. Right? So that's why houses in Beijing are so expensive nowadays. Now, you can also have something that has high value to people, but is also very abundant. For example, sunshines or rainfalls, right? Now you can also have something that has little utility to people, but at the same time it's also very rare. For example, meteorites, right? And lastly, you can have something that has absolutely no utility whatsoever to people, but unfortunately is everywhere. So the example I have in my mind is PM2.5, right? Pollution in Beijing. So I think what Mr. Chin needs to focus on is the sound in the first category. That is, he should focus on collecting sound that has high utility or value, right? But at the same time are also rare. I think that's where he can potentially make a profit.
And just because he has this very large amount of sound pieces, do you think he can actually succeed in the future anyway? Simply because he has these abundant resources? Does having abundant resources guarantee business success? I
think the answer is no. Right? So he'll have to think of a way to monetize the resources. Right? So make sure there's buyers and there's sellers.
So 30 years, 20 million RMB spent on this company and 0 to almost no profits, right? And Qinjie doesn't seem like he's overly worried about this. And again, there's a lot of free access to sound in this country right now, and you really cannot beat something that's free. Should Qinjie be a little bit more worried, do you think?
It's actually not uncommon, to see ventures not having a clear revenue model when they start out. I think depending on the business model, some companies, for example, those in retail or education sectors, they're cash flow business, so they start to generate revenue from day zero. But other companies like pharmaceuticals or some internet companies, the lead time to revenue is generally longer for them, either because the R&D period takes a long time, or because they forego early revenues as part of their marketing strategy in exchange for users and market shares. But if the company can't really generate revenue quickly, then they will have to look for the money somewhere else. So in the case of VOCC, I think the company is actually very lucky in that it has a so-called angel investor, right, who supported the company for many years without demanding a high financial return. But I think VOCC is a rare case. I mean, generally speaking, when you bring on financial investors, revenues, profitabilities, and IPOs, I mean, these are some of the topics that will come up very often, during the course of business development.
And lots of patience for this angel investor, right? 30 years, no profits, and he's still okay with Qinjie's business. But China's trademark laws have changed in the past few years to include sounds and voices as part of the intellectual property umbrella. So how does that affect Qinjie and his company? We discuss that coming up next.